The Prayer of the Righteous, Part 2 by Elder Bobby. So this Sunday, he went a little bit more into Matthew and verses 9 to 13. So I'm going to start with that first. Lord, we just thank you for this time, Lord. I just pray that you would just speak to the hearts that you need to speak to. And may I just be a vessel, Lord. So it says, this then is how you should pray. Again, the disciples, one of the disciples has asked, can you teach us how to pray? So this is what it says. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also forgive those our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So he went more into clarity. Like we did the first part of hallowed be thy name the last time. So if you haven't heard that, I encourage you. We are on YouTube and Facebook. Go listen to his message. It was wonderful. So part 2 now, we are talking about how the eyesight shift. So in the beginning, yes, you were doing hallowed be thy name. He went how the first part of the verse relates to God and is heavenly focused on God. And spiritual eyesight, starting with looking at perspective. Your perspective kind of shifts because you're looking at God. When you say hallowed be thy name, you're recognizing your will be done here on earth as it is in heaven, right? The mindset is changed in the sense that you are a daughter and you're a son of God. So you know that if you're a daughter and a son of God, that you know you are serving a mighty God. So it changes the way you view things. God is larger, right? But then he went into more depth as the second part, which is our daily provision. As being God the provider, and careful to not think that it is us that we do things, but he is the source of everything, right? So that was pretty cool. But I think what really hit me most was when if you value, Elder Bobby says, if you value in what Jesus has done, then you will forgive others. And I think that is the main thing that it's hard for all of us. I mean, you can say you're maybe more holier and you can forgive really easy. That's awesome. But I just think, and I don't mean this in a bad way or anything, but like even like a husband and a wife, sometimes you get into arguments that are just like, why am I even like arguing about this? You know, like, or sometimes there's other things that are root in the problem that you don't even realize that that's what really is. And it's just coming out in a little argument and you're thinking, what is this going on? But it all comes down for unforgiveness sometimes, or even the relationship between a mother and a son, or a dad and a daughter, or whatever that relationship might be, or even your coworker or your boss, or even your best friend. It's just any relationship you're with, you're gonna have to forgive. Now, I know some people are like, well, I'm kind of shy, so I don't really like to get into friendships, you know, and stuff like that, or I only have 1 or 2. Well, even if you only have 1 or 2 friends, you're gonna have conflict because you're 2 different people with 2 different mindsets. However, it tells us to forgive. So Peter was actually asking Jesus, so how many times should I forgive? So if we go to Matthew 18, Jesus talks about the parable of the unmerciful servant, right? And Elder Bobby was hitting on this. Now, Peter was trying to be like slick, and he's like, listen, how many times should I forgive him, right? So Jesus said 7 times 70. So then you're thinking, oh my gosh, if you start counting, that's a lot. So in a marriage or in your kids relationship, whatever, that's a lot of times in one day, right? So no matter how many times you can try making that effort of getting your husband or your wife that mad, or your sister or your brother or your dad or your mom that mad, you would have to work really hard to make that happen for 70 times 7 times. They'll go like, oh my goodness, I forgive you. Yes, fine. You know? So but what I really caught in this parable is watch how patient the master was. It says on verse 26. Now, again, the master has said, okay, I need to collect the debt, right? And the first servant says, at this, verse 26, it says, at this servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay back everything. The servant master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. Now you notice the servant is asking, be patient with me. So he is expecting the master to be patient with him. He actually even named it and said, be patient, right? But then it goes on to say on verse 28, but when the servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. And then I thought, wait a minute. Didn't you just beg for patience for the master? And now you're not begging for patience. You're not giving this guy. The guy didn't have a chance to say, hey, can you please forgive me? Like, be patient. You know, he just went and choked him. And I thought, how many times do we not do the same? Our reaction, maybe we're not choking anybody, but our reaction is to come back up. Ugh, I'm going to put on my gloves and I'm ready to fight. And I think that's why God wants us to forgive, because he didn't put on the gloves and said, okay, that's it. What do you owe me? You know, I went to the cross. You know, you shouldn't be acting that way because I went to the cross and I already died for you. So, you know, like, he doesn't do that. He is a gracious God that says, even when we cry out and be like, oh God, please have grace on me. Please have grace on me. But yet we don't give grace to others. And I think that was one of the things that really like kind of took me off guard. I'm like, man, that's so true. Sometimes that's me. I don't have grace in my marriage. And I'm just like, well, you need to be able to do this because I'm going through this. And my mind is just, you know, as a woman, you just think a lot already. But you know what I mean? Like, sometimes we just pinpoint. Or maybe you're a man and your wife just did something really annoying. And you're just like, I just don't like when she disrespects me this way. Or, you know, if you're a woman and you're in a marriage and, you know, your husband says something sharp and you're like, well, why does he have to speak to me that way? Like, you know, so it's kind of like a going on and on thing. But I realized that that's when God says, stop, breathe, it's okay. You're going to get over it. You know, forgive. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway. No matter what relationship, or even if your son and daughter have done something really bad that you're just like, I can't believe you just did that. It's time to forgive and to let it go. And I mean with forgive is, I mean, you're not going to forget like this. Sometimes some things you will forget, don't get me wrong. There are things that really hurt you in a relationship, and it could be with your best friend. It just really hurt you. And I'm not going to say forget them, but God can heal the wound, and eventually you can either forget, or if you remember, it's just like, you know, it's just like, okay, it happened, I'm over it. The minute you know you forgave is because when that thought, even if the enemy brings it back, or even your own flesh brings it back, you can be like, okay, you know what? It doesn't bother me anymore. I can hear the person's name. It doesn't bother me anymore. Right? Because you have given it to the cross. Now, how do we get to that point? Isn't that a good question? Like, how do we get to that point where you just can be like, okay, I forgive you. That's fine. My mom always says, borrón y cuenta nueva. That means I like take the slate off, like clean it off, and everything starts brand new. And we can only get to that point when we search God with all of our heart. We really, truly search God with all of our heart. We surrender it to him, put it at the altar and say, God, you know my pain, you know the hurt. Maybe the person hasn't even apologized. And it does, I mean, I know that we said it doesn't matter if they apologize or not, that's on them. It's what you do. So you surrender it, you give it to God and say, okay, God, here it is, here's my pain, here's my hurt. Can you heal me? Can you help me forgive? Even God is so gracious that he helps us forgive. So sometimes that takes time, depending on how deep the wound was. It takes time. And it takes effort on our behalf to change our mindset. So when you do pray, hallowed be thy name. God, it is about you, not about me. I know I'm hurt, but I am surrendered unto you. And so I just encourage you guys to forgive. And I know that sounds easy when you're not in the midst of the trial. And when you are on the trial, I think God is calling us to a new level, and it's through prayer. When you keep praying, even if you're circling that same prayer over and over, then I encourage you, go for it. Circle it, you know. Again, just encouragement. If you haven't gotten this book, we are doing it as a church. Elder Bobby kind of gave us a like encouragement, you know, the lessons to go home with, and then he gave us a challenge for you guys. He said read one chapter a day. Or you can also join our Zoom prayer. We're doing that on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. You can look in the website, or if you want to email, if you want more information as to how to get that the ID. And you can also come at 10 a.m. Come at 10 a.m. in the morning and come pray before service on Sundays. And also pray with your family. Get your kids together. Not just for like dinner and pray. Don't get me wrong, that's awesome. But maybe like do a small devotional, or just be like prayer. Hey, how can I pray with you, son? How can I pray with you, daughter? What's going on in your life, you know? And they might think that was weird at first because they're not used to it. Maybe you don't do it, and that's okay. We can always start wherever we are. You know, pray with your spouse before you go to bed. Just get together. Even if you're mad, be like, okay, God, I'm really mad right now, but maybe this is going to help. Forgive. You know what I mean? And God works miracles through that. So anyway, so I just want to encourage you guys. Think the takeaway, yes, there is temptation, and he did cover also about temptation. But I think the key takeaway for me personally was just forgiveness. How to not hold on to something, but let it go and just ask God to help you through that, so that you're able to keep going. You know, be merciful, be patient, just like this servant was asking the master for, and he gave it to him. Let us be the same thing with others. Now that is a challenge. So I just hope you have a wonderful, blessed day, and I hope that God will help you through this journey, and that he will just be the right hand with you, like he'll just sustain you. All right, have a good one.